Hello, Tom Levecki here with the latest edition of the New Theory Podcast. New show sponsor, Magic Mind. Anybody who knows me, I tend to be all over the place. Your New Theory Pod listeners and those watching, do you ever feel that you're not operating at your full potential? Like me, are you struggling with focus? Are you drained of energy? Are you looking for a way to boost your creativity and productivity? If that's the case, you need to try Magic Mind. Magic Mind is a nootropic drink that is designed to help you perform at your best. It's made with a blend of natural ingredients that have been clinically shown to improve your focus, concentration, energy, and mood. Check out Mastermind with a link below. 10% off for all New Theory listeners and viewers. 10% off your first order. I've been taking this for a while, Lee. My concentration, you always know I'm all over the place, but it's been helping me out, and they signed on as a new sponsor of the show. So, Lee Cole, since you've been on last time, we have a lot of new subs. Thank you, everybody. 30,000 subs. We have eclipsed that milestone. So, Lee Cole, welcome to the New Theory Podcast. Welcome back. And for those who may not know who you are, please introduce yourself.
My name is Lee Cole. I have a YouTube channel. And recently we did something very different, and our show's starting to take off. It's growing more now than it ever has. Did something rolling the dice, and I'm glad you brought me here because I want to discuss it, exactly what was done.
All right, so without further ado, hold on. Let me just get this correct.
Yeah, I am Lee. Yeah.
And yes, everybody, that is Sammy the Bull.
Lee Cole. I got family here. I just wanted to say hi to you. I wanted to ask you about Alan Kaiser. How come you never talk about Alan Kaiser? Well, I think that it'd be better if you did talk about Alan Kaiser, Sammy.
Apologize for what was said about me. Didn't happen.
Because I can? Yes, I can record. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So for those that don't know, Lee took a ride to, I guess, Arizona, confronted Sammy, as you saw there. And let's unpack this. So we're going to jump in from the beginning. Was your plan to go out there to talk to Sammy? Give us like the idea initially, and what was your initial process?
Okay, here's what happened. Originally, we were planning on going out there, meeting and sitting down and talking to Bill Catullo.
Okay.
And then Bill Catullo ran into some major health issues and postponed it the last time. He had some major surgery, a matter of fact, very critical surgery.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Bill called us up and told us we couldn't do it. But then I also have another friend out in Phoenix. His name is Maz, and he has a show. It's called MMA Holes. It's a top-notch MMA channel. And so I was going to interview him, but that fell through. So I said, while we were out here, we're going to go back and investigate some of the old haunts of Sammy Gravano. So I went to his old business. I went to his restaurants that he owned, his wife and Gerard owned. And then we started doing some research, and some really strange stuff started coming up on Sammy. Things that didn't make sense. One, he was trying to hide his whereabouts by using a post office box and saying that post office box in that plaza was where he was, and we found out it wasn't.
Oh, and, like a mailbox, like a UPS store type thing. Okay.
Yes. And so after investigating, and I have a great partner too to help me, he's the one that really located him. So I said, okay, let me go over there because Dominic Cicali's been fighting with Sammy Gravano and was talking about him living in this place without a shower and stuff. I wanted to go see it with my own eyes. When I first went there, I wasn't even thinking about meeting Sammy Gravano. Okay, so
you're going to his place. What were you thinking you were going to see?
I wanted to see exactly where he was.
Okay.
And so because the way Dominic described it, there was a garage in the back. I kind of didn't believe it. And so I went there. There was a garage in the back. And then I drove around the front, and it was the front. That was the first day. So I decided to go back a second day, and I filmed it again just to get a better idea. And I said to myself, whatever I do, I'm not going to go into the business.
Okay.
Because at that point, once I go into the business and get out of my car, I wasn't even thinking about that. So what happened on the third day when I drove by, like a little cartoon character, Sammy Gravano was sitting on the bench in front of the studio.
Yeah.
And so I passed him. I said, I can't pass this opportunity up. So I did a U-turn.
Yeah. Okay. So then what happened. Okay. Now my only thing though is, given your answer is, I wanted to scope it out. You did Uncle Sal's, you did the old marathon construction or pool or whatever it was. I'm with you on all that. That part I'm digesting, I think, pretty accurately of what you're saying. But then you went like one time, I get you want some B-roll or, hey, maybe where he is or whatever. And I actually still kind of get that. He is a public figure. You are a podcaster in a space. You're kind of like bleeding into journalism. So again, I'm actually still kind of with you on that. But you went there 3 times. You could argue that that's a little excessive, no?
No, because it was 3 different days in a row. It wasn't like one time, and it was 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
And both times it was to reshoot what I shot the day before. I wanted to get better. I wanted to do better on the shooting. And I kept sending it to James. I had no idea I was going to run into Sammy Gravano. That's the reality of it.
Okay. Right, but could you argue though? I'm just listen. Honestly, Lee, it's funny. I was in Lake Placid, and Lee doesn't call that much, but when he does, it's purposeful. So I had a miss Lee cold call. So I think I was driving back from Lake Placid a day later, and I checked in, and my first thing was like, "Are you nuts?" And I was like, "Wow, that was ballsy." So I was taken aback by it, considering everything that was there. So you do your three days, right? You run into him, right? Now, there's a big difference of being on the screen with somebody or even watching them and then seeing him in person. What was your initial visceral reaction when you saw him?
It was kind of funny because Sammy Gravano he's an odd looking character.
Okay.
And when you look at directly and see him, when I looked at the car and seen him sitting on the bench, it was weird because I noticed someone was sitting next to him. I had no idea at that time it was his son. So he was there. And when I walked by, all of a sudden, he looked right directly at the car, and I could hear him mouth to his son, "That's Lee Cole." And so right away, I knew that he knew me.
So they know who you are, or they knew
without a doubt. Okay. He knew exactly who I was. And I knew that he knew who I was because Dominic Ciccali came on our show one time, and Dominic had an argument with Sammy Gravano for coming on our show. And matter of fact, Dominic Ciccali covered this with Jeff Nadeau on Patreon, where he came out and Jeff Nadeau said to him, "So Sammy knows who Lee Cole is?" And Dominic Ciccali goes, "Yes, Sammy knows who Lee Cole is."
And can you give a little context? And just for the record, I have not spoken to Dom Ciccali, or at least not about that. I talked to him briefly a little while ago. I have not talked to Sammy or his people, and I have not talked to Karen about this, or even Ramona, who's friends with their family. So I'm really kind of coming into this as a kind of somebody who really wants to learn more. What happened between Dominic and Sammy?
Well, Dominic and Sammy got into it because they shot a video together, and Dominic was going to release. He told Dominic that he was going to release the video onto his channel.
Oh, so in front of the firewall. And what happened? He put it in the back?
And he kept it behind the paywall, and Dominic kept asking him to do it. But it turned out that he was pissed that Dominic came on my show. It really bothered Sammy. So Sammy kept it behind the paywall, kind of being spiteful.
Oh, for that reason.
Yes, for that reason.
Okay. So I could go ahead, Lee. Sorry.
So he was being, and I know that Sammy knows me because 2 years ago he called me and told me he was going to put his foot up my ass. So I always knew that he knew me. But I had no idea that well, James and we do a lot of stuff on Sammy. We put a lot of stuff out there that people don't want to put out. Matter of fact, we have a lot of really good stuff coming out on him.
Yeah. So hold on, I want to unpack this a little bit. So I work in the media space, my day job, which is, if everybody's wondering where I am, it's because I'm working a lot, plus 4 kids. So generally, if you are going to collaborate with somebody, not the government, but let's say Lee Cole and I are going to do a collaboration, and I know Dominic is a smart guy, especially when it comes to business. So I don't know if he had an agreement. Again, I haven't talked to Dom, but my question with him would be, when you do collaborate with somebody, you do need something in writing saying, hey, I'm going to give my likeness. I'm going to sign everything off. In exchange, I'm going to do your show with you. And you know what? It's actually common to be, hey, Lee, I'm going to put this behind a firewall for 30 days to get my firewall, get my Patreon going or whatever that is. And then I'll put out into the front. Because I don't think Dominic wants to go out there and only be seen by 100 people when he has 500,000 subs. So I'm guessing between them, there probably was a handshake agreement in media. You need it in writing. Is it going to go behind the firewall? And if so, how long? And when is it going to be released to the public? So that's my guess of that nature of that piece.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Okay. And then on top of it, the gasoline on the fire was him appearing on the Lee Cole show.
Yes. Okay. With me and James. Yes, that's exactly it. And but there were other things too, not just that. And Dominic explained. I guess the best thing to do would be to ask Dominic. But
okay,
Dominic.
Yeah, I don't want to sidetrack too much. I'm trying to give context and the backstory about kind of this universe. Okay, so now you go out there, you drive by 3 times, you run into Sammy. We saw the confrontation. And I'm just going to shoot very straight on this. At your level, even our level, because now you're getting a decent size amount of subs and you're building some traction. Do you agree with your approach?
Absolutely, and I would do it 100%.
But
okay, first of all, First of all, I'm in my car. I am not on private property. I am in a parking lot. Private property for that business maybe, but I'm in a major parking lot. I am not going toward him. He's coming toward me. I'm not leaving my car. I do not even get out of my car.
I'm looking at this in a different lens. I'm not talking about legality, stand your ground. Hey, I'm coming for you. I'm going to give you extending the courtesy of saying, you know what? You are a podcaster, which bleeds into journalism, whether we like it or not. And I get guilty of that all the time where I'm a podcaster. I just interview people, try to get the stories. And people are like, well, you should have a lot more journalistic integrity, right? Which is a good criticism. And that's why I'm trying to change my show around a little bit. So you are bleeding into a journalist, right? By going there and being in your car and by filming him. I'm not talking about the Alan Kaiser part. That part I'm not. We'll get into that in a second. What I'm referring to is the way you approach them. Like, for example, I know his daughter well. I can call her up. I could reach out to Sammy's people on your behalf. People that know him. Do you think there might have been a better way to approach him?
No, I'm very happy with the way I did it, and I would do it the exact same way again.
Okay.
I did. Absolutely. Okay. I have no problem with what I did.
Okay.
This is Sammy Gravano.
Yeah.
Okay. This is and Sammy was talking to me. There was the person that started it was Gerard. Gerard was mad because Sammy even seen me recording him. Sammy had no issue with it. It was Gerard because
that was kind of.
Let me finish, Tom. Okay. It was Sammy that had no issues. It was Gerard that didn't like his father being filmed because, God forbid, if somebody was going to go take his little gravy train for a moment and film him.
Okay, let's unpack this. So that was my kind of exact point. Watching this, and we could watch it again, but I don't think we need to, is I get a feeling Sammy, I'm not saying he was amicable and coming for an espresso, but he wasn't confrontational with you. That was my question. Do you think if you might have approached it slightly differently, maybe you could have a sit down with him off the record or on the record?
I wouldn't have had to sit down with him.
Okay.
I was happy with the way I was doing it. I did not want to sit in the presence of the man. The man is a horrible human being. I had no desire to sit in his presence. If I wanted to do that, I would have walked into the studio and decided to do that. It just so happened he was on the bench. And I even politely said, "Hey, Sammy, how you doing?" I wasn't aggressive. Sammy got up and walked toward me. I did not walk toward Sammy Gravano.
Okay. Next question. So the Alan Kaiser situation, and I interviewed him myself, and one of the criticisms I got from my interview with him was, why didn't you bring up Alan Kaiser? Well, for me, it's fairly simple versus maybe a Jeff Nadeau or somebody else interviews him. I generally look at, or the scope of that interview was, I was really interested to talk to him about the business end of Cosa Nostra. I'm a business guy. I'm an entrepreneur. That has always been like my mantra. It was called the Armchair MBA. Even New Theory, I focus on the business end of things. That's why I'm trying to unpack your philosophy and how you did things on your end so people can learn your thought process. So what I'm getting at is, you led with Alan Kaiser, which obviously is a travesty. A young man lost his life. And I believe, as I understand from Joy in her writing and some of the other shows, that there's some decent evidence or some strong evidence that Sammy's story may not align with what their story is. So let's give the respect for that camp, if you will. What is your understanding? What happened that night? And I understand it wasn't Louis Melito from your perspective and their perspective. Can you give some color to what facts you have and what information you have surrounding
Well,
that?
one of the facts is in his testimony under John Doe to the FBI, he stated that he shot Alan Kaiser. The story changed once he got out there in public. You can't lie to the FBI when you're sitting down on the 302. If they do catch you in a lie, and Sammy refuses to admit that, so he basically admitted to shooting John Doe, who was Alan Kaiser. And now he says Louis Melito, who is dead, who was betrayed by Sammy Gravano and murdered. Okay, so he blames everything on Louis Melito. Louis Melito put the shotgun, and then he lied about how many times he's been shot. It was a shot behind the ear as the guy was running away, not toward him. Sammy lied on his show and said that the kid must have been high on drugs and lunged for the gun. That never happened. There's so many. Then he said to me right there on that video, he said, I apologize to the Faraci family. He did not apologize. Joy came out and once again said that. And people have to understand, Joy is very happy for what I did. So I really don't care what anybody else thinks, because Joy deserves that. Because it was her brother.
I want to get to the reaction of his family, on Kaiser's family, and I want to get into the reaction of the community, because I think there was some sides, like always, but we'll unpack that in a second. So here's my important question, though, and this is very important, is FOIA or the like, are we able to obtain Sammy's documentation from his debriefing from the FBI saying he shot John Doe? Do we have that, or is that circumstantial at this point?
No, it's not circumstantial. All you have to do is go find it.
Okay. Do you possess that, or do you know anybody who does?
I possess all that stuff, and it's right out there. But I'm not going to. We're doing another video right now that I'm going to put up that evidence. I'm not going to talk about where it is. It's people's duty to go find it. It can be found, though.
Yeah. No, can you do a FOIA or something? I'm just wondering if you say to me right now at face value, and you have a good faith effort to say, hey, I have this, and this is the evidence I have, I'll accept in good faith that you have that. Okay. Now, so you led with that with Alan Kaiser. Okay. He said that he talked to the family and they accepted his apology or something.
Yes.
That seems to be an abject false statement. Unpack that a little bit, man. I know you kind of touched on it, but I'd just like you to reiterate.
Joy came out and said that just recently, yesterday and the day before and the day before that Sammy Gravano never got in touch. Last night, Mikey Scars did a show on this. Joy was on the show and said the same thing once again, that there was never an attempt to reach out by Sammy Gravano to apologize to the family.
All right.
So he was lying.
So you drove a long way to confront Sammy, which you did.
No, once again.
Well, no, not to confront Sammy. No,
I told you why I was going out there.
No, yeah, forgive me. I'm not. I told everybody I'm not there. Got you guys. So I'm not trying to get.
And Bill Petullo would be very. Bill, I wouldn't just say that about Bill Petullo. He's a very interesting character. That's why I wanted to interview him personally, face to face.
I interviewed him, and it was turned out to be like a 3-hour long form. It was like a Joe Rogan length interview, and I was very happy I did, and I wish him well. I didn't know he wasn't doing well, so shout out to Bill. Hopefully you're doing okay. We'll send you prayers and positive energy. Okay, so you get there with the intent of scoping it out or doing what you other ancillary stuff, but you see him. You mentioned Alan Kaiser. You again in good faith saying he lied about that. What are you expecting? Like a best case scenario, right? Give me your Lee Cole best case scenario. What was he gonna say that would have been satisfactory to you, or what were you hoping he would say?
Maybe actually really be honest about apologizing to the family instead of lying and stating that he did apologize to the family. See, Sammy, a week before this, about no 2 weeks before, Sammy brought up Alan Kaiser again. And you got to remember when you're bringing up a family to the family of a murder victim,
Yeah,
and you keep putting that murder victim out there, that you admitted that you were part of that murder, and you keep bringing it up, you open that wound. Sammy kept opening that wound. Okay.
Yeah.
He talked about it 2 years ago on his original broadcast when our thing. He could have just left it there, but no, he chose to do his live. And one thing about Sammy and his lives, he says a lot of things that his show doesn't like because he doesn't, when we're live, we'll say things that cannot be edited.
Yeah.
And that's it. And Sammy did it again with Alan Kaiser. It really bothered me, the whole Alan Kaiser thing. And because of the fact that he brought it up, he upset Joy again. He upset that family again. And people will say, oh, well, Alan Kaiser's been dead for 40 years. It's her brother.
Well, so
brother.
Okay, so let's talk about the aftermath of the reaction. My first reaction, you remember, is like, holy shit, Lee, you got balls. And I was in shock, and I still can't believe you did it, to be candid. And I was really interested to see the reaction of some people that like you or don't like you, right? And who gives a shit if they do or don't, but their reaction was a reaction. And I need to be candid. I was surprised I thought some of the people would have patted you on the back, and they didn't. And then I thought
That's
there were
not
people.
true. No. That's not true.
No, there's mixed reactions. Can we agree on that?
So here's the thing. Anybody that was a mobster that
Yeah.
knows Sammy Gravano wrote me and told me what I did was a very good thing. The people that attacked me were the people that don't like me and Sammy's people. Those are the people that attacked. But the decent people didn't attack me.
Okay. Can we argue though that, and I've been subjected to threats, some credible, some not. I don't want to talk about them because I don't want to talk about them. And I know there were some instances where there was some stuff offline in this space, in this community. So what do you think about the argument or the discussion that this really, he is a protected witness. He is I guess, a fellow content creator, that you took this offline. What do you say to those critics?
I would say to them that we report on our show. I went out there as someone that is a reporter. I consider myself a journalist. Well, may not have the degree of a journalist, but on that trip, I was doing journalistic things. That's why I was going out. There were some interviews lined up. I even had an interview lined up at the Mob Museum, speaking, and even at the UFC, where they were holding on to a badge to give me to get into the show.
You did tell me about that. So in fairness to you, and I try to be as impartial as I can on this, is you did tell me you were going to go to Vegas. You had, I know you have some connections with the UFC, I believe, through the podcast. You were going to get some special access. So this all checks out, and I can be the first to verify that. So I get that. This kind of got distracted. But then, okay,
COVID is what stopped me from going further.
Got it. Now, I'm with you on this, that I get you taking the journalistic angle, and we could push and pull on it with the journalistic angle was a better way to do it. And we're just gonna sit there to
how's that, Tom? What was a better way? You tell me how was a better way to do it.
My personal opinion is, you and I have always kind of had up and down relationship, but if you called me in good faith and said, hey, listen, I'm going down there, I'd like to talk to him. Is there any way I can get a comment, a statement, or something to try to go the normal channels. That just, you know,
That's unrealistic. It would never happen because Tom, you would tell me no, that you couldn't put it together. Come on, we know
I would try. I'd try.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Okay, so I'm with you on that. So let's just say I make a few phone calls, it doesn't happen, right? And then you go that route. The second part though is now you get into taking stuff offline, meaning now I have 30,000 subs, right? I'm far from famous, but I do go to Atlantic City or Boston or New York, and I've had, with my wife and mine's amazement, of people coming up to me. I've seen your podcast. You're the Armchair MBA, blah blah blah, right? So I'm not famous, but I'm I guess a public persona. Is it okay for somebody to come to my house now and film and like approach in that way? I just want to see where the cutoff is and how do we delineate on what's right and what's wrong on that.
Your house, yes. There's something wrong with it. I didn't go to a house. I went to his studio.
Okay. Does he live there though?
Officially, he's not even supposed to be living there. It's not an apartment complex. It's a studio. It's basically warehouses with studios. He's the only human being living in his studio there. These are all businesses. That is not an apartment complex, and I wouldn't go to someone's home. Period.
All right. So I did see Mikey Scars and RJ's live. A big fan of their show. Big fan of RJ. Was at my house personally. So I consider him a friend. Mikey kind of stuck up for you. So give me what were your thoughts on that? Were you surprised, or what were your thoughts on that?
No, because anybody that knows Sammy Gravano personally has stuck up for me. Anybody that knows him. Nobody has come to me because they know what a horrible human being he is. Okay. And it's like I would say to this. Out of all these informants here, how many of them have murdered their friends? How many of them were involved in bringing their kids into drug dealing and having their kids arrested and becoming drug dealers with them? How many of these informants on here basically hid money through their children's businesses? None of them did. Only Sammy Gravano did. Sammy Gravano deserves whatever he gets in life.
Okay. What about okay. So this is seems to be, it's not really a heated debate per se, but seems to be somewhat of a controversy. My personal belief, me, Tom Levesque, and people can disagree, that I believe as far as informants are concerned, there is a spectrum all the way to Bill Gattolo, who somebody killed your father. And it's like, you bet your ass, especially as close as he was as his father, for him to retaliate, to me, was in good order, right?
I actually agree with that. That's why I was going. One of my biggest interviews ever, actually my biggest interview ever on my channel, was with Bill Gattolo.
Yeah.
But I felt like I didn't do it properly because at that time I had my partner, Danny.
Got it.
And I wanted to do it more professionally and better.
Okay, so
I was actually looking forward to meeting Bill Gattolo and interviewing him more than Sammy Gravano.
So we're on the same page that there's a spectrum of informants. I would put Bill all the way to the left, justified, maybe Sammy all the way to the right. Because not only did he inform and put a lot of people away, but he recidivated pretty heavily with a 20-year drug sentence. Okay, now you also changed the scope of your show a little bit too. You expanded your content. You were kind of anti-informant, and then now it seems you understand that there's a spectrum of informants similar to my point of view.
I'm anti-informant.
Okay.
But I will deal with an informant if I believe that any one of us as people that have shows have the right to interview who we want.
Agreed.
Some people may not like that we think this way. I've been up and down, without a doubt. I've been up and down on this, and I can't say otherwise because there's the evidence. But what I try to do is I'm not going to be kissing any of their behinds. And sometimes, no matter what I do, and Tom, you know this, no matter who you interview, it's never going to be you ask them enough.
Correct.
They're going to always say to you, "Oh, you let them off the hook." It's like Jeff Nadeau interviewed Sammy Gravano, and Jeff Nadeau actually said something very good to me about this. He said that he was given a limit of what he could ask by Sammy's people. They called him the night before and said, you can't ask this, this, and this, and this. So that's the questions I wanted to ask Sammy's. There's 2 questions in particular that you cannot ask Sammy, and he puts it out there perfectly clear. One is his brother-in-law who got murdered because of him, and also Alan Kaiser. Those are the 2 things that Sammy Gravano did not want in people. He murdered his wife's brother. He murdered a 16-year-old. Think about that.
Okay. No, I mean, we're not talking about priests here. So I agree. And you know, in media, maybe I'm jaded, but it's customary to maybe have a do not answer question list for bigger interviews, but I totally get it. All right. So
those were going to be the 2 questions. If Sammy went beyond that Kaiser question when I was talking to him, I would have gotten into the brother-in-law part, because you got to remember, Sammy kept that from his sister, that he murdered her brother, and just like he kept the Alan Kaiser murder secret. They only found out when the FBI went to Joy's house and the mother and father and said, "Oh, Sammy Gravano admitted that he killed your brother, but we're not going to charge him because that's going to be part of the plea." So these are the 2 things that really redefine, except the fact that he was a drug dealer with his kids. Those are the 3 things that define Sammy Gravano.
Okay, what do you say to folks that say, Lee Cole, it was a publicity stunt?
I would say, okay, well, if I'm that smart, God bless me. You know Sammy Gravano, I'm sorry, Bill, I quote. Tom, you know Sammy Gravano. Do you think Sammy Gravano and I got together and put this together like this?
No, but it's funny. Some people try to run with that, which I thought was funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. They give me more. They make me much smarter than what I am. That
All
whole
right.
thing, meeting Sammy Gravano, was luck.
Yeah. Well,
Luck.
again, I always like to unpack the business angle of things. Your new channel direction, which we'll talk about in a second. The addition of James Proctor, who I'm a huge fan of, fellow NBA, and then doing something like this has really enriched your channel. So give us first, what new direction did you take for your channel versus what you were doing, and how did it pay off? Because you and I talk, a little more these days, and I'm really impressed with your results.
Well, one, we don't really want to be involved in the feuds that go on here. That's why we do not do lives. We do very few lives now, and it's more profitable for our channel to do a live, but you're more respected when you drop videos and you do research. And without James, I'm just a mediocre guy, because James does a lot of research. That's the reality of it. It's like I said, the whole thing with Sammy was luck. If I was in a casino that day, it's luck. It wasn't planned. Sammy was sitting there. People make it sound like it was planned. No, if I wanted to plan it, I would have got up, walked into the studio and said, "Can I speak to Sammy Gravano, please?" But I knew that if I went into that, people that go into places with Sammy, there's a lot of them that didn't come out of them.
Okay, so you changed direction. You started seeing positive results. You had addition to James Proctor to the show. Let's talk a little bit about James. Tell us a little bit about James, so people. I'm going to put a link to Lee Cole's show in the bottom. I'll pin it at the top of the comments. I have a lot of new subs, Lee, so a lot of people probably haven't heard of you, respectfully. I encourage them to check out Lee Cole and James Proctor show. Tell us a little bit about James.
James has been with me for about a year now, and it's kind of funny, when we started off, James thought that he didn't have the ability to go on camera and do this. But what happened, he's adapted to what his skills are, just like I adapt to what my skills are. He's a hell of a researcher behind the scenes. And when he's on with me, he can explain things probably more technical than I can explain them better, maybe pronounce a name better. And he's a researcher. And, right now we're in the middle of researching Sammy Gravano. We've got research right now on Sammy Gravano that nobody else has, and it's been out there. And, and that's when I went to Phoenix, a lot of that was to look for that research on Sammy Gravano and what he's doing and stuff. I'm not going to get into that until we drop the videos on it. But,
Well,
you know, it's because of research.
Well, I mean, like I said, you and I had our ups and downs, but one thing I always look at, like, what are some things people can say about Lee Cole that even their enemies can't say bad about him? I think you put on a decent interview. That's just my humble and personal opinion. They can say a lot of things about you, but I do think you put a decent interview together. Can you share with maybe some interviews that you have coming up, or do you want to share some ones that you did to point some reviewers to that you're proud of?
Well, I got the Patreon page. Angel Gotti and I have the Patreon page together. Those are where we have some really good interviews coming up.
Okay.
And because there, Angel Gotti has access to people that she would not want to bring on to this. And you know this, there's some people that you just don't want to bring into this world of YouTube because it's kind of insane. And you've been through it. You know, I've been through it, but you've been through it too.
Yeah,
so,
I have. So, okay. So, what's next? You're going to Danny Trio's house?
No, Danny Trio. No, no, not Danny Trio's house. No, I'm not going to go to nobody's house.
No, I'm just messing with Lee. All right. So Lee, Lee, and I appreciate it because I know you like going some panels and stuff. I don't think you did a formal interview. I'm really happy that we spoke, that you honored me with sharing your side of the story or your story with me. We're going to go live to tape. For those that I was on Lee's show not long ago, the thing I like about Lee's show is we're such like a snowflake era. Nobody wants to talk politics. Lee, whether you like him or not, he believes what he believes in and he stands by it. But I will say this though, some political ideas Lee and I don't agree on, but he at least listens, which I think something we could all learn from. While we're on the subject, are you going to cover like more politics, or are you sticking more with true crime? I don't want to get into too much in the election because I don't want this to get demonetized, God forbid. But what type of content should we expect from the Lee Cole James Proctor show?
I'm gonna be honest with you. When I was out in Phoenix, I got COVID, and then I came back, and I remember it was on a Thursday. And Thursday night, I was so sick. I was at the motel, and I said to myself, I got to get home because I don't want to die in some motel on the road. Yeah. So the following day, I got up and I got home. And then a day later, I went to the doctors and they told me I had COVID and I was extremely sick. I'm just getting over it now. But it made me look at it. Today, I feel so I feel so healthy. I've lost 105 pounds before COVID, you know, and my health is totally in a different spot than it was a year ago because I was near death. I felt it in my body. I have energy that I don't have. And once I got past this COVID, the last couple of days, it makes you the outlook. And see, the bad thing about COVID, I don't know did you get it at all?
What do you mean? That's the only reason I still talk to Lee. So quick story. I interviewed Sammy and he and I both had C19. We had it both pretty bad, but we kept the interview. I'm surprised you don't remember this. I had it rough. I'm not vaccinated. No comorbidities. I could stand to lose a little weight, but other than that, no comorbidities. But I had it pretty rough for 2 weeks. Lee called me every day for 2 weeks to check in. I'm surprised you don't remember that. Every day.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Every day. My wife obviously was with me. Some family members, 1 or 2 friends. Lee, like you set your watch to it. Tom, you hanging in there? You're hanging in there. Here's my cash app. Just kidding. No, Lee called me every day for 2 weeks, and that's why I take Lee Cole's calls. And I know we had some issues in the past, but that's why when you apologize this last time, I remembered tough times will build character, tough time reveals, and he showed me who Lee Cole was. Well, listen, Lee Cole, it was great to have you on. I'll leave you with the final parting words on this special episode.
Final parting words. We mentioned everything except the culprit in here who decided to cold cock me without me looking. Gerard. Okay, Gerard Gravano is no different than his father, and we have some stuff coming up on Gerard Gravano. So he's not the little sweet guy, his son protecting his father. He was upset because I was filming his father, and that is his money tree, his dad. Okay, but I'm gonna get into Gerard a lot more, along with Sammy Gravano.
All right. I'm going to end it here. But for those people that made it this long, for whatever reason, you're interested in hearing more, I'll leave back on. But I want to get a dialogue going. Was Lee Cole right in what he was doing? Support Lee below. If you respectfully disagree, be respectful and share your opinion below. And thank you guys for watching the New Theory podcast. Check out Magic Mind. It'll help you with your concentration.
And go to Lee Cole 3. Lee Cole 3 is my channel with James Proctor on YouTube.
Love it. And I'll put a link below. Thank you so much.